Welcome back. Today we're diving into part 2 of our Simplify Your Travels series, and in this video we're going to be looking at apps to help you from finding the perfect flight deals, booking accommodation, or finding those must-see activities. These are the apps and websites that we use to make our holiday planning stress-free and easy. And in this video I'm going to share with you some bonus tips of lessons I've learned along the way and some of the ways I get the best out of these apps that I use. In part 1 of this series, we looked at the apps and websites that I use for planning and budgeting a trip. Check out in the description below, we'll have links to that video. Let's look at flights. For my initial thoughts, I will look at places like Google Flights and Skyscanner, and I'll also check if we've got enough points for it to be worth using Qantas or Velocity for our trip. We've saved thousands of dollars using frequent flyer points, and I'll talk a little bit more about how we've used frequent flyer points in the past a little bit further down in the video. But for now, let's talk about Google Flights and Skyscanner. With both of these, you can put in if you know where you're going, you can put in your destinations and the time you're going. Sometimes it can be paid to be flexible by a day or two. You could save a couple of $100 on exactly the same flight at exactly the same time by going the day earlier or a day later, if that can be worked into your itinerary. Another great thing about both of these search engines is you can get multiple flight routes. So you might be going, say, Sydney to London, and you're thinking, okay, I'll go Sydney, Dubai, London, or Sydney, Singapore, London, or Hong Kong, or some of those known stops. But if you put in the route, you may end up finding that they can do a multiple airline route that will take you somewhere different. It might take a little bit longer, but you might be able to end up with a 12-15 hour stopover or even a day stopover in a destination you'd never considered visiting before. And it just opens up possibilities. Another option in that, if you're not locked in on certain days or dates, or even locked in where you land, you could go, okay, I'm flying from Sydney, that's where I fly from, hence why it jumps to mind, flying from Sydney anywhere, and it will give you multiple destinations with prices and airlines and all of that sort of thing. Now, I never book through those third-party websites, but I use them for the research. When those prices come up on those search engines, there's usually a couple of different choices for flights. Most of them are third-party flights, but you'll also get the main airline will have an option to book through. It's not usually the cheapest one, but I tend to book then through that company. Once I know the route that I'm looking at and even the flight numbers that I'm looking at, I will then go through their website and book directly with the airline. For me, that's a bit of safety. Has anyone else ever used a third party? How did you find it? If you had a problem, was the customer service good with follow-up? I'd love to hear any stories of people who have actually had a success with a third party booking. I'm sure they're out there. I'm just too chicken to take the risk. If you're getting value out of today, I'd really love it if you hit that like button. It lets YouTube know that we've got something worth sharing, and it also encourages us to let us know that we're on the right track, creating content that is helpful to you and the way that you travel. Also, don't be afraid to say hi in the comments below. We love meeting new people and hearing about your travel adventures as well. When it comes to accommodation, my go-to first stop is booking.com. I love booking.com because you not only can put in and get reviews of places from verified customers, but you can also get a really good list of what's available in that accommodation. You've got a way to contact them. Granted, it might not be as good as if you're going direct with them, but initially you do have that scan through. You compare hotels. You can also look at the overall, there's an overall rating system without reading all the reviews of how customers have rated a hotel, and you can see what elements of that hotel, whether it's the overall accommodation, the cleanliness, the staff, the Wi-Fi, the facilities, how customers rate it, and I just find that really, really helpful. It's good to know whether breakfast is included. They've got a loyalty program that I'm using. I'm on level 4, I think now, of their loyalty program. So quite often in hotels where breakfast might be at a cost, we might get it thrown in, or we might get upgraded to a bigger room or a room in a different location because of the status that I've now accrued on Booking.com and whatever relationship the hotel and Booking.com have and their agreements. I promised you earlier in this video that we would look at frequent flyer points, and now that we've looked at flights and Booking.com and booking hotels, I'll quickly explain to you how we use frequent flyer points. If you're looking for expert advice on how to get the best value out of your frequent flyer points, you're probably on the wrong channel. But if you want to know how this middle-aged Aussie uses the small amount of points they get to try and stretch their holiday budget, you're in the right place. What we use is quite often I'll use points and pay when we're looking at flights, and that could save us a couple of $100 to nearly $1,000 on some flights, depending on how many points we've got and what the, I guess, exchange rate is for the points at that particular time. And that is the most common way that we use our Qantas frequent flyer points. We also collect velocity points, so we will check that one out as well, but they're accumulated at a slower rate because it's not our primary where our points go into in different areas that we do try and feed points into. We have managed to secure a couple of full fare return flights. So my next flight to Barcelona coming up in February, so there's a whole series coming up. My flights were completely paid with points, and then of course you pay your taxes and anything extra. Then we also use them for hotels. Now this can save us a couple of $100. It can get us into a more expensive part of a city, particularly London. Our last trip to London, when we stayed right on the doorstep of St. Paul's, that was done with frequent flyer points. Before our cruise, we used velocity points to pay for the hotel that we stayed at right on Circular Quay at Sydney Harbour. For us, that is a great saving, and it gets us where we want to be, and we don't have as big a hit to our budget to stay in those places. You can also use points and pay quite often for hotels if you don't have enough points, and then that of course will lower your overall nightly rate. So that's how we use points most often. As I said, may not be the best use of points in the grand scheme of things, but for us it does help us save a couple of $100 here and there in a trip. I'd invite you to subscribe to our channel. Phil and I do a couple of trips a year, and hopefully we'll get more trips into around Australia as well as time goes by to share with you, and we also share with you the tips as well as the amazing destinations that we visit and the experiences that we get to have. Once I've found the perfect place to stay, I know I've got my list of things to do. I've been on Tripadvisor or Viator, and I've had a look at the different options of day trips and stuff like that. Something might have caught my eye, or we might be looking for a particular experience that we want to do. I'll go onto there and I'll check out what they've got available. I'll look at the ratings and the prices of the different things. And I'm in the really early research stage. I'll go into places like Viator, pull up their half day and full day tours of a destination to see what sort of places they visit. And then if there are places on there that are important or seem to get mentioned in a lot of those tours, I'll have a look at them, see if they're worth putting onto our itinerary, and steal some ideas off them. Great place to do it because they're all there. Then if I actually look at a tour and decide that it's worth doing, then we'll discuss whether we add that to our planned itinerary or not. One thing I would say if you are going to read the reviews is be careful of the date. You don't want to be looking at feedback that's even 2 or 3 years old necessarily, because if there's a run of bad reviews and then a run of good reviews, it could mean that they've had a change of ownership or management, or they've done a refurb and The place is now different. They've upped their game, they've improved things. We booked a place once in Florence, wasn't with booking.com, and when we initially booked it there were a few little red flags. We did end up staying in this accommodation, but by the time we actually went to go about 4 or 5 months later, the reviews had dropped a lot, and a lot had to do with customer service. We didn't have a problem with the customer service, but we were also aware of the reasons there were the problems, and we didn't rock the boat. So just be aware of that, but watch the age of the reviews. When it comes to booking trains, my go-to is Trainline. Over the last couple of years, that's what I've booked any trains where I've been going from city to city. I'm a point A to point B person, one booking at a time usually. To be perfectly honest, I haven't been able to figure out how to book Ural and make it make sense to me even after I did the training when I had my travel agency. So maybe I'm just thick like that, and we don't usually do a lot of trains anyway, so that point A to point B is usually 1 or 2 trips in a holiday. With the right apps and websites, you can take a lot of hassle out of booking a trip. These are the apps and websites that I use when I'm booking our overseas trips, and I would love to hear from you. What are the apps you use? What are some of the things that I may have mentioned today that you didn't know about or haven't used? And don't forget, this is part 2 of a 3-part series. If you want to catch part 1, here it is. And as always, thanks for joining us. Travel brilliantly. Bye.